Hey, everyone, I'm Ben Howell, and I am chairing our church's leadership council this year. And I just want to say welcome to this evening session. We're doing a visioning session. This evening is focused on children's ministry. So thank you so much for taking time out to be with us this evening. And we look forward to a robust discussion, uh, sharing where things are currently. Oops, where things are currently in children's ministry, and then having the visioning discussion. And oh, I don't know what the problem is. I lost my hit button. There we go. My mouse just happened to be on the stop sharing button, and I clicked it to advance the slide, and it didn't advance the slide. It stopped sharing. So anyway, we'll cover where children's ministry is currently, and talk about where we see children's ministry going, get some feedback from our group joining us this evening, and then we'll talk about next steps from this evening. So a little bit about this session. It's really designed to help our church's ministries respond to God's call, and we want your help to do that. We see the sessions as an opportunity to inform our church family about our vital ministries, gain feedback from you about the ministry's future, and to participate in shepherding the ministry's resurgence into our new normal as we emerge from the pandemic. So our desired outcomes are to gain your feedback, to get down to what matters within the ministry beyond the program itself, and for everybody to hold hands as we leave with buy-in as leaders in our church and as volunteers to serve this ministry. So if you'd join me in a prayer as we get this evening kicked off. Creator God, thank you for the day. Thank you for bringing all of us together this evening. And thank you for your church. God, please use our time together to spark creativity, to share ideas, and for us to help look at where we see children's ministry at First United Methodist Church going. So God, please be with us during this time. Give us courage to speak up when we have something we want to say, and willing ears to listen to what others have on their hearts and minds. God, we thank you for this time and for everyone present. We ask you, we say all this in thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm going to turn our session over to Pastor Rick, and he's going to work through our next part. Rick, take it away.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is great to see everyone here. What I'm going to briefly talk about is where we are. And this is kind of a presentation that has different speakers. So I'm going to be talking about what's happening on campus, mainly on Sunday mornings. And then we're also going to have our family council chair is going to share what's happening there, and also from TCA and also MSDE. So that's part of this presentation. So we'll start off just going right with the list. Sunday morning in-person Promised Land. We've been open since the campus has been open. And what we have is the nursery is available for ages 0 to age 4. Then we also have Promised Land, which has been open as well. So the system that we have to do that is that since we are still doing pre-registration for us to be safe and also do the contact tracing, part of our system is that we allow as many volunteers as how many kids can come. So if we have 2 volunteers in Promised Land, that means we can take to 10 in Promised Land. If we have 3 nursery on staff, we can take 9. It's like a 3-to-1 ratio in nursery and about a 5-to-1 ratio in Promised Land. So in Promised Land, we're normal mornings we're doing is mostly connection and community time for the kids that do come, but we also have lessons that have been made that connects with the Sunday morning. And so I do want to give kudos to Melissa Lay and Mary Yielding, who's been doing a lion's share of being there every week with kids. They've taken ownership of it. They're there every week, and they're just amazing, and they're awesome. So that's happening on Sunday morning in person, Promised Land. Then also we have.
Could you tell us how many you're usually having in Promised Land?
I mean, usually in Promised Land, in the nursery, we average about three kids, and then in Promised Land, you know, Melissa, you can chime in. We're averaging maybe 3. Some 1 week we had 16. So it's just
and
that
some weeks we have 5. Some weeks, I mean, it's just kind of up and down.
Yeah,
it's hard to plan for when you go from 5 to 16. I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard, but we have people, and so we manage, and we try to keep appropriate ratios inside the room so everybody stays safe, and so we have that managed. So like our biggest week we had 16, and that was great. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And so for Sunday morning digital Sunday school, which is our Zoom groups, we have from 10:30 to 10:45, which is the slated time. We usually last a little bit longer. We have 2 Zoom sessions. We have a preschool to 2nd grade, and then we have a 3rd through 5th grade who does that. And so what we do during that time is we have a greeting, and then we go through the lesson. And so my wife, Lynette's been leading the 3rd through 5th grade, and Laura's been doing preschool to 2nd grade. And I also have to include Milou Rossi, who was doing a whole lot in that too with our digital Sunday school. So that's been available every week, you know, since we had a pandemic. We've been meeting virtually as our digital Sunday school. And so another part of that is we've added, we were doing the Wednesday night worship, which is mostly the feature of it was our news team, a 5th grade news team who does, we had a taste of it during Christmas, but they do the what's happening at the church, talk about the lesson. We have a sports report. We got all this kind of things. So that's kind of like a rite of passage for the 5th graders. So Wednesday night really features them, but we've moved that to Sunday morning so we can have a sense of giving Sundays back to families and kind of a regularity of our kids of connecting somehow to the church back on Sundays. And so I know Melissa and Rusty are on the call, and their daughter's on that. So Emily is one of the anchors that does the news team. And so that's been phenomenal to do as well. So we average for that particular about 25-ish who've used that, 25 devices who watch that. And so our nursery has been available, like I mentioned, on Sundays. We have a great staff. The staff's been their first aid, CPR, and also we have COVID regulations that are in that room. And so we average about 3 that are in the nursery, ready to accommodate those who register, and if we have those who become unregistered. And the nursery has moved from the spot where it used to be, which was in the Asbury building on the bottom floor. And so the school and children's ministry, we worked it out, and that it's moved to 205. So it's in the Family Life Center. So on the 2nd floor in 205. It's a bigger space. It's carpeted. We've got sinks. We've got a personal bathroom. It can be get scanned to get in and so forth. So it's we feel really good about being in that space. We've been there since last year, and so we've changed the space. It's got tables for preschoolers. They can do crafts and do coloring sheets and things like that. Then a separate section to where babies can crawl around, and we've got like a little obstacle course thing is in there, of course the rocking chairs and so forth. But the nursery's mainly been available for Sunday mornings, and it's available at the 9 o'clock and also the 11 o'clock times. And we've had kids at both of those times. Another part that we've been doing with children, just where we are, is the Children's Moments. That's been going on since March, since when the pandemic hit. We've been doing Children's Moments, and the design of that ministry is to go in line with our sermon series, which is kind of what we talked about in family ministry, that the whole family is getting the sermon in different ways. And so the adults, of course, are getting it from our pastors and through worship, and then we have our children have it connected to the lesson. So we hope at the dinner table or wherever they are, they could be able to talk about the same type of things. And so Children's Month's been amazing. It's been so fun to do. And we've had a rotation. Mainly it's been me doing it, but we've had a rotation of other people who picked it up and done some of Children's Moments. And so once again, the design of that is to connect with the sermon series that's been preached. So been doing that since March. And then another ministry that's kind of developed with the pandemic is called Faith at Home Kids. And that is basically with the sermon series to give the family totality of the lesson with preaching and also the children's moments, is that the Faith at Home Kids are ways that families can do activities together that's connected with what's happening at the church. And so it's been custom made. Did a lot of research, done a lot of digging for that to make it happen. But there's different activities and things that families can do with the hope that one of our values is that we are training parents by default and giving them the resources they need in order to become the spiritual leaders of their home. And so Faith at Home Kids is a way of doing that. And so we have taken different steps. We started out, the first time we did Faith at Home Kids, we had people come to the circle drive and we handed them out. But then we decided as a team we start delivering them. And so we put them together and we have teams that go out and deliver it to people's homes. And so I want to give a lot of credit to my wife, Lynette Jones, who's on the call right now, who's been really taking it as her own as far as finding the curriculum and finding activities that families can do together. And so, but yeah, we've taken different steps. And the latest one that we just sent out for Lent, we have a Lent kit. We have an Advent calendars in it. And we have like 38 pages of activities for families to do all throughout Lent. And so we've taken the next step. It was like drop off and you get a bag, and then we start just giving bags with activities. And now we have it in a box, and we made a book. I mean, I can show it to you. Just you can see it in the camera. We made it like a bounded book that has all these activities. And so just trying to take it up a notch. So for families can have those resources they can do together. So that's where we are as far as what's happening in the church. But now I want to turn it over to Laura Paquette. She talks about the Family Council.
Hey, everybody. I think most of you know me. I'm Laura Paquette. I chair the Family Council. I used to chair Nursery Board, and that was absorbed into Family Council a couple years back. Our mission is we're a joint lay and staff committee that works together to do visioning. I mean, it's a lot like this sometimes, and then it's also finding feedback and coming up with creative solutions. So, of course, we've been really busy over the last 18 months. I want to definitely shout out Pastor Rick's leadership and commend him because he's been able to take the challenges of having a congregation that might be split between wanting to be in person, needing or wanting to be completely virtual, and some combination of the two, and really offering something for everybody. Particularly the Faith at Home Kids have met one of our long-term family ministry goals, which is more empowering of the parents to be partners in spiritual throughout the week, not just Sunday, development of their children. And that's been a really cool progress to see. And it's also led to some pod-based things where families get together and maybe do it together. So it's been a really good evolution. We're into the Gracious Host pillar. So we meet with Miss Arnetta once a month and kind of update the larger church on things that family ministry is up to in terms of both victories and current needs and concerns. And we also try to work closely with both Stacy and Ashley at the preschool to continue that relationship. We like to have a lot of promoting preschool things at church and promoting the church to the preschool. And I think even with things being a little chaotic this year, we've continued to do that. I think Rick is doing chapel at both. So at least one.
We got, it's a group of people. It's not just me anymore. It's our pastors and things like it. All the pastors are part of it.
Yeah, which is amazing. So when over the summer, we were in a situation where we needed to figure out how to work with less staff and less in-person help. And we've had a lot of lay leadership just spring up and bring creativity and new ideas to the table. And it's been a really great year for us.
Laura, thank you for that. I just had a question. As you talk with parents, and maybe Rick can answer this, what is your temperature gauge in terms of how many are ready to come back? Are people still hesitant? I know, for example, with the family that had a baptism Sunday, they had older brothers. They weren't ready to bring them into the church program. They were still kind of wary about that. Are you getting some sense of read of where parents are about how ready they are for them to come back in person?
I am. That's something we talk about a lot. I think what it comes down to a little bit is that there's not a ton of change. I mean, it's very unlikely that any of the young families are getting the vaccine at this point. So if you went back to school in the spring, you may have made the decision to open up to church, but I think for a lot of people, it just feels that it's not necessarily much safer than it was 6 months ago, which I hate to say, but I mean.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Rick, do you want me to turn it over to Stacy?
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Stacy.
I can answer all the questions y'all want, but I think
Yeah.
If it's quiet, then it must be my turn. So I'm Stacy Wilson, the director of TCA Preschool. I think I can safely say we were probably the first ministry that opened back up. And we opened up in late June, and we started off with a small group of 25 families and then expanded at the beginning of our fall school year to about 50 families. And now, as we are reaching the end of the school year, we have 80 families currently enrolled. We just completed registration for the summer and the upcoming school year, and we're bringing back, we should be back to capacity of about 85 to 95 families for the fall school year. So it's just been really awesome to see that even though we went through what we went through this year, that the families are still there and we're growing and word is getting out, and we've got wait lists, and we've just been continuing to follow all of the CDC guidelines and staying really strict and not combining our classrooms, keeping all of them in their own pods, separate playground times, sanitizing any shared spaces when they do chapel and things like that. And it's just, I think, seeing the success in the cases that, the small amount of cases, minimal cases that we've had in the school, that parents have trust in what we're doing and are, wanting to feel safe enough to be a part of the school. So that's been really awesome to see and experience. So.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
I'm going to assume that MSCE will follow Miss Stacy. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Finfrock, and I'm the director of the Methodist School for Early Education. Ours is one of the oldest ministries, as we are in our 67th year of operation, and we have a long-standing history, and we're well regarded in the community of Winter Park and Maitland at large. So happy to be here this evening. We currently have 181 children enrolled in our program, and that reflects family numbers of about 141. So we have 181 families, but 181 students on campus, but 141 families. And one of the things that is really exciting for me is that we have so many families who are trusting the protocol that we have established, that we've worked really hard to put safety procedures in place to keep everyone safe and as COVID-free as possible. That's not to say that we don't have our occasional cases crop up, but when you look at the numbers and you do the math, statistically speaking, when you have 181 people and you've only had 4 or 5 in your entire school for the entire school year get COVID, that speaks, I think, volumes to what we're doing. It's easy to reflect on what's happened and get in the negative, if you will, but I really just choose to look at how faithful our families have been, how wonderful they are in trusting us. They really just, it's amazing to me that we have families that enrolled and they've never seen the inside of our facility, because we are an entirely closed campus. And so we have these mothers and daddies with their first babies often, that have entrusted their most precious gifts into our care. And so I am most proud that they trust us enough to take care of their sweet little ones. And it's such an honor and a gift that God has given us. So I'm grateful for that. trying to think if there's anything else. Just, we're plugging along. We also, like Stacy, like TCA, we just completed our current and registration. We have, as of right now, 171 children enrolled. So that's 10 less than where we're currently at, but that's not abnormal for this time of year. That's not doing any advertising outside of word of mouth and within our community that we already have. So that's families, MSE alumni. I'm excited that a lot of our grandparents are starting to recruit their grandchildren to come. So we'll have to revisit what defines a family. I think as we look at how families are made up these days, a lot of our families are extending to grandparents. So that's exciting to see multi-generations that have been a part of the Methodist school. So I'm just grateful that we're still continuing, and we look forward to an exciting year.
Thank you, Ashley. I had two recent reminders of the importance of the preschool ministries as it works in conjunction with the church. One is we had a baptism last week, and the father had actually attended MSEE when he was young. So it was kind of cool to see that. And then we had a membership class last week, 17, and I think there were 3 or 4 families that were joining that have kids at either TCR or MSEE. So love the work that you're doing to continue to bridge the preschool towards the church and vice versa.
And before we move to the next portion, just want to know, are there any questions for anyone about where we are?
Hey, Rick, this is Ben. Question for the preschool directors, if I could. Appreciate the insight on where you're tracking for fall. Just for our reference, what is the capacity that you have for enrollment?
So for TCA, our license capacity is 103. And that's to say that's per day that could come. So since we offer part-time flexible scheduling, we could have more families enrolled. We could have a larger number enrolled as long as no more than 103 come per day.
So 100 on campus at one time, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. Like our class right now, our 3-hour classroom, the capacity of the room is 15, but we have 19 students enrolled in the class because they come on varying days.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'm assuming part of it, Stacy, is also that it's not like all classes are not evenly distributed. So I'm guessing you probably have overfull some age groups and underfull, or is that an inaccurate assumption?
It's kind of going that way, but we're getting to a point where almost every classroom is hitting capacity. So that's a new good problem to have, trying to figure out where to squeeze them all in.
Concerned in the height of our glory days, I believe we were at 255. I believe our numbers reflect building code wise, it's 221. I believe somewhere between 221 and 225, and that would be with 14 in each class. But again, we have 16 classes, including a kindergarten, but not all 16 classes are on campus at the same time because we don't have the space for it. So, we are probably 220 would be our goal. And then in the height of the season, when things were totally back to normal, I think we were busting at the seams at probably 255.
All right. Thank you very much.
I do want to say, I'm not sure if the question has been raised, but just one quick fact, another thing about the Faith at Home kids, we're averaging probably about 15 per term when we send it out. And we've also taken kind of a new approach of delivery. We either have some type of personal connection with the family, either by phone or by text, just to check in and see if they want a kid. It's kind of a way to pastor families by connecting with them through the kid. And so, but we're averaging about 15 kits that's been delivered out. Okay, so looking ahead, where we are now, we're looking ahead. So summer camps and vacation Bible school, and it has a question mark because we just don't know where we are right now, dealing with COVID and dealing with capacity, dealing with the amount of different issues that's needed in order for those camps to happen. So There are question marks with summer camps and VBS. We also have a staff position that's still out there, looking for prospects for those to bring in their resumes and so forth. But there's a staff position. It's called the family coordinator, and the family coordinator is basically going to be looking at managing things on campus on Sunday mornings, and also doing some administrative functions as well. So that's what that position is looking for as we look at children's ministries, as we talk about tonight, and part of what David's going to talk about as well, kind of looking at the future as far as children's ministries. There's an on-campus component and also a digital component that both need to be built out. And so this staff position is going to be definitely a part of that, and we're still looking for that. So if you know anyone who's interested, looking at a family coordinator, kind of a children's position, we're still asking for resumes for that. And also, it's coming up is third grade Bibles. That's a tradition, a long time tradition that we've had here at the church. March 21st is going to be the presentation of the Bibles, and then we're going to have Zoom classes March 21st, March 28th, and then April 11th, because Easter is the 4th. So the 11th will be a conclusion of that. So that ministry is going to take place starting in March. So that's kind of where the visioning, not visioning, but future things that we're looking at right now in children's ministries. So do you have any questions about those three things, or?
So Rick,
Maybe Laura, do you have a sense of kind of a timetable you're thinking about when you'll make a decision on summer or VBS? Is that in a month, 2 months? What's your sense of when that might be decided upon, or Rick?
In a month. I mean, summer camp, if we're looking at summer camp things, registrations and those things need to be done around Easter time. And we need to have a good number of how it's going to be done. Really, May is kind of the deadline for having everything in place. So in a month, there'll be a decision made on that, because things need to move ahead as far as that's concerned.
Yep, I would agree. I think we'll figure out.
Sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to interrupt you. This is such a unique format. I know that the Methodist school.
We want to limit capacity or the best way to handle it, but we'll figure out something.
Ashley, did you want to say something?
Forgive me, I'm still learning how to utilize this format. So if I was interrupting, that was completely, Laura, not my intention. Forgive me. I did want to let you know that the Methodist School is going to be hosting a 3-week summer fun, like our Oodles and Doodles, but it's only specific.
Oops. Ashley, you muted yourself, unfortunately.
Here I am apologizing again, and then I can't get it straight. Please forgive me. I wanted to let you know that the MSEE will be hosting our Oodles and Doodles summer camp. However, that is specifically for families who are currently enrolled or who are enrolling for the fall. So we're trying to maintain that same cohort model, but it'll be the concept of a BBS, where the classes kind of travel, but we clean in between classes, and we've got the system down, but it's a totally different setup than like a Vacation Bible School, in the sense that would be open to the public, which creates a whole unique set of dynamics to contend with. So it's easy for the preschools to do it because we've been doing it all year, and we have that opportunity to fine tune what we know works on a much smaller scale and in a safety capacity. But I think at large, when you think about like summer camps and Vacation Bible School, now you're opening this whole can of worms, like how do you register? And it just seems to be, I could imagine, somewhat overwhelming.
So Rick, I have a question for you. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you sharing that. That's good information about.
Awesome, Ashley. Excellent. Yeah.
So Rick, I have a question for you about the third grade Bible presentation.
Yes, sir.
There be an opportunity for those who would like to receive it in person to do so?
Well, we're still discussing it with our worship team, and that collaborative process about how we do things, deals with baptisms and things like that and so forth. So we are in conversation about will we have some children who want to do it live. initially it was just going to be Zoom. We're just going to create some kind of environment that'll be Zoom, how they receive that. But we are going to, whether if we have some live or if it's done in Zoom, we are making a third grade Bible kit in line with our Faith at Home kit. And with that kit is going to be the third grade Bible, and it'll be some markers that they'll get, some tabs to put into the marker. It'll be some kind of memento with it, and like pencils and markers and things like that. So we are assembling a kit that's going to be delivered to those families to have, whether we have children that's going to be in person or whether it's done in Zoom. So we still are deciding that if that's going to be possible to have them on campus.
Okay. Reason I bring it up is if it's not going to be possible to have at least some third graders receive their Bibles in person during worship, if we could have some sort of presentation to see that they receive the Bibles.
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely have that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sitting here wondering about the kits that you do, which are great. And I'm thinking about the families that have come to visit. I wish that we would, I mean, we're not talking about programs, but just an aside, I really wish that we would do a better job at advertising them on Sunday morning when families come and saying, look, you know, we have these wonderful resources for your children. I'm talking about not the Bibles, but the kits you do on the family kits. You know, maybe we need to display them more prominently during worship or that time, because that's a great resource. And I'm not sure people know about it when they visit. So.
We have, sorry, family, we handed them out. So I've had some visitor families, we've given those kits to them as they leave for today. So we've handed some, we've had extra that we've given to the families. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's let me start by saying thank you for being present tonight. I am grateful for your taking time. Thankful for our lay leaders who have worked so hard to help us put together programming for families during this really strange season of pandemic, a pandemic that is clearly altering the landscape of what ministry looks like. I'm grateful for our staff, for Rick, for Stacy, you know, Ashley and others who are working this ministry, and just appreciate all of you and all that you've done. Tonight, the next part of this section is really to have a bit of discussion. I'm hoping, you know, so far it's been, I've talked a bit, but I'm hoping to hear a lot more from you. I would really like to hear your heart about where you feel that we're called to go. I think as a pastor in my chair, it is a perplexing time. And I wish I could pull out the formula and say, this is what needs to happen and where we're going, but I don't have that sense in this season. And it's a time when we need to pull together and to really put all of our creative talents to use. You have talents that I don't have, and vice versa. And so if we can work together, so please share and add in. So before we get to that, Matt, put the next slide in. I'd just like to start with a couple of things that I think are components to
Hey, David, you're on mute.
I went somewhere in that. I don't know what happened in there, but the whole thing cut out there for a minute and I went blank. So where did I leave you?
You might just want to start from the beginning of the slide.
Oh, from this slide. Okay. So a couple of things that I think are key components to children's ministry. This is just my experience over the years. I would invite you to weigh in and to add, certainly Rick or Rachel or others, anyone that, but I think some critical components for me in children's ministry. And one is telling the stories of the Bible. As I understand it, and I'm not an expert, we have other experts in the room, But developmentally, this is the stage in the life where we're filling in, we're pouring into the mind the stories. It's not a season when we're worried about if they really make a lot of sense. We're not really worried about, abstract concepts. We're not really worried about making sure the truth is gotten exactly. It's a time when we're telling the stories and we're just giving the raw material that children, as they grow, will be able to sort it out and take it out and unpack it and look at it for themselves. And that's what happens in the youth ministry and in the college ministry. That's when we begin to understand it and take these things out. But if we don't spend the time kind of putting the stories in, putting the raw material in, then there's not a lot to draw on to unpack and own, And so to me, a key component is it's grounded in the stories of the scripture and of God. And second is that it's really formulated around an environment of love. And this, so much of our understanding of God comes early on from our family of origin and from others that were around. And so the children's ministry is so critical because it is literally helping to shape at an even deeper level than any other time our understanding of who God is, and having this sense of God is a God of love and grace, and God loves you and treasures you is formational that really helps people so much down the road. And then finally, for me, the third component is kind of this sense of community. I as a pastor, struggle to raise my children in the faith. It's a difficult job and it's an incredible responsibility. I hunger so deeply for my children to have faith and to know God and to be equipped for what they're going to encounter as they grow up. I pray for them every night, and I don't pray that they will never have difficulty, because I know that's not realistic, but I pray that they will have, God's grace with them that they will not be destroyed, but they will have this to draw upon. And so, for me, the deepest hunger of my heart is that my children have this faith. And I think of the time when my youngest child really came to kind of this place in his life where he decided that he wanted to kind of step into this faith. And it's so profound, one of my greatest memories. But I knew even in the moment that was the Spirit of God working, and that was the voice of all those that had been in his Sunday school, and all those that had been in his children's ministry, and all those who had been other parents of faith around him. That it wasn't just about me and me having all the tools. It's a part of this whole community that we're helping to nurture these children in the faith and equip them for further in life. And so I just found children's ministry so profound in terms of what is being laid down, in terms of filling up the content of God and experiencing God's presence through others and having that network of support as they get older, more profound than almost anything we do. And I kind of set the conversation as some of the pieces I think key. Would love to hear from you. Am I missing the pieces that are not on here? And I'm not used to this format either, but I'm getting good at not speaking until someone does. So.
Well, David, I know I agree definitely with what you said. These are three, you nailed it right on the head. Another thing that, with experience being in children's ministries was connecting all of this is creating these experiences that they will remember. And so, I believe that it has to be in the telling of the stories and in the environment. Yes, it is educational, and you did say this, but it's fun, and and they have that experience that they can carry with them. I don't want to take too much time because I could do stories. So I'm not gonna do stories, but I do believe that is definitely creating experiences that they remember and they can carry with them as they are recalling those stories that they learned in church.
Rick, I completely agree. I feel like it needs to be fun and enjoyable, or they're not going to want to come.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
they need to be engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa.
I'm going to say I think all three of those are right in line as an early childhood educator and also as a parent of a child who was raised in our church. And I think you nailed it on the head, David.
Yeah, you can see really how the preschools work so in tandem with the children's ministry, and they're really one ministry, in some sense, in different forms. But that environment of love and telling stories is in the preschool, but it's also on Sunday, and it helps bridging that community. And having just the preschool without the children's ministry is less powerful, and having the children's ministry without the preschools is less powerful. It becomes a whole week long, and the more that we can work together and hand off from one to the other and work together and what we're doing and having fun and having this environment that's filling kids in and loving them, to me is why this is all kind of one joint ministry.
Hey David, this is Rusty. I want to give kudos to Rick Jones for keeping the news crew going during this time. I know that Emily, our Emily, is really enjoying participating, and she gets a kick out of meeting with their friends. And I think one of the key things with children's ministry is small groups, especially with Methodism. And, you can see the connection between the kids, even if you, even after they do the videos and you kind of, put them together, they seem to connect. And I know they're meeting on a weekly basis at this point, and Rick talks to them, and Emily's just really enjoying it. And I think it's helping her come out of her shell as far as doing presentations in front of folks. So I think it's helped out her.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah. So could you,
Emily's
Rusty, could you narrow that
She's a
down
rock
a
star.
little bit? Rusty, if you could narrow that down a little, because what I hear you saying is there is an element of relationship building with each other. There's an element of having some kind of task service together. But could you kind of nail down what it, in terms of values, in terms of what the news crew does?
Sure. It's a development of confidence, of speaking about God and Christ and everything that's connected with that. I think that it definitely helps too, as far as I kind of look at it for repetition's sake too. I think that's how you learn, because you hear the stories, you tell the stories, and then you tell other folks about them. So I think the kids are really getting a kick out of that, and it reinforces it too when it's connected to the sermons. So that's what's been going on with the news crew. They've been talking about Jonah and his experiences he's been going through. Just like when they did the live news from Bethlehem during the holidays. So I thought it's kind of a different perspective, but through a kid's eyes, So.
Yeah, Rick, you're doing a great job with that. We really do appreciate it. And Emily really does feel connected. And I think, just like public speaking helps kids grow, this is sort of a way to work on that. And Emily has really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, thank you. Good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I had Savannah was in news crew last year, and I just want to echo everything that Rusty just said, because it also, she formed a pretty strong bond with some of those kids that were in there, and now several of them are in confirmation together, and she was very excited to be in that group with them. And it got her wanting to go to church, which was a great thing. That was, we loved news crew.
Awesome. Thank you, Brooke. Well, let's go to the next page and let's talk a little bit about this, and this is kind of the bridge. Tonight, what I'd really like to do is to get down to some of the outcomes. And I think we just started doing some of that, the confidence, the connection, the ability to speak of Jesus, learning the stories. These are outcomes that we want out of the ministry. It could be that the throughput is a new crew. That's the program that helps us get to those outcomes, and it seems like it's doing very well. I want my child to know about the Bible is the outcome. It may be the third grade Bible kit is the throughput, but tonight I really want to talk about what are the values that we want to arrive at. And then we're going to have another meeting on the back end of this where we get to the activities and the resources we need to get to those outcomes. But just kind of stepping in a 50-foot view. So the next slide, Ben, if you would. Yep. There. So what outcomes? I think we've named some of them already, but what are some of the outcomes that we're seeking in the children's ministry?
raise my hand. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, right. Go ahead. Speak up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get better at this, I promise. I think one of the things that really just stuck in my mind, Pastor David, when you and I were in the interview process for my job, and you said the end goal is faith formation. And everything I do when I think about our outcomes are how is this applicable to this particular child's faith formation? What can I do to really make his or her journey towards knowing Jesus? How can the school, how can a teacher, how can we do it? Everything we do, if we're talking about hearts, how can we make a heart about Jesus? How can we make love about Jesus? How can we make this theme that we're taking, and that's, the beginnings of shapes and colors, and how can we incorporate Jesus and, grace into that? And so everything that I do, I really just see that as our main outcome is how do we begin the foundation for faith formation?
That's exciting to me, Ashley. That gives me a sense of passion to know that that's what we're doing. I mean, that's really exciting. What else?
I would add to Ashley's point, this is Pastor Rachel, but I'd kind of flip it on the head and say, we are having our faith formed by these children as well. As we as adults are interacting with either our own children or grandchildren or the kids in our preschool or through Vacation Bible School, they speak truth, they speak joy, and we are learning from them. And so I think maybe an outcome would be sort of an openness for the adults, the ones in ministry, to be open to learning from the children, because really they teach us so much.
I'm gonna, if I can say something here too, it's along those lines, Rachel. I keep thinking about having Rick, the little piece with the children's movement has been really great in the when we're watching on Sundays. I think that's a connection we just don't know a lot about, and all of a sudden there's Rick up there talking about it, and we've got the news crew, we've got whatever going on, and it's been a great connection for the adults who normally wouldn't be connected with the children's ministry to be seeing what's happening and get a little bit of enthusiasm about that.
Yeah, so part of what we're talking about is the value of really being a family where we are growing together. I guess it's like some sense, am I saying that right, Rachel, that we have this value where we value children not only as those that we're forming in faith and this opportunity we have, but also who are also in relationship with us and shaping who we're becoming as individuals and as a family. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yes, perfect.
Kathy, you're good with that? All right, excellent.
Good.
I would also say too, one of the most formidable times in my life in children's ministry was being able to discover my gifts. And so regardless of if our children are gifted artists or athletes or singers or dancers, I would love to be a part of a children's ministry that helps children discover whatever gifts God has given them and help them expound upon those.
You cut out there.
I did.
Or if God has made them to be, or
the gifts that God's given us. Have that be, Studio 150 is a perfect example of that, helping. And I'm sure we've done, dramas and cantatas and these kinds of things. Impact Singers is a great example of how we allow children and youth to figure out their gifts and do it in a safe way in the church, and do it to the glory of God.
Yeah, I think that goes in with the understanding of who God is as a loving God who has made us special and has made us gifted and lovingly, and we have been formed in such a way that we have places that bring us joy and meaning, and so it all ties together. I think in this understanding of God, who God is, and who God has called us to be, and how life is to be lived in community and in fulfillment. So that's well said. Thank you.
I would just add on that one of our goals for family ministry has always been intergenerational ministry. I know growing up, my Sunday school teachers were not always my friends' parents. Sometimes they were, but a lot of times it was, older women in the church. It was, my youth leader was maybe a single guy who didn't have kids yet. I think that there's children and families can learn from people at all stages and phases. So to tag on to what Kathy said, I love that the church is being brought more into, hey, this is what the kids are up to. This is what they're learning. And by doing ministry that mirrors the sermon series, we're able to kind of have a church-wide conversation about it instead of doing kids in a vacuum, which I really like.
I appreciate you saying that, Ron. One of the things that I miss about being together is I think about is the interaction with others that children can have even, I think about growing up in church and how one of the most important times was in Chicago, but in the lobby, the huge lobby after the service, or it would be our courtyard where, you would interact even as a kid with people of different adults or different other kids. There were other families that would say hello, know who I was, and not being together. I feel like there's this huge loss of in that interaction for me, but even especially for children and youth to have a broader sense of family, and the broader sense of family have an idea of who they are. And that's really hard when it's all digital. And so I really resonate with what you're saying. Anything else in terms of values, outcomes?
I think as simple as it is in early childhood, with such formidable years, the most important thing is to remind them constantly that they are loved no matter what. And so that's something that we are definitely work with the children and letting them know that, God loves you no matter what. You don't get that message in other parts of your life.
That's right. That's right.
When you go to public school, there's not somebody constantly telling you you're loved no matter what, and so as you move into the next phases of life, that message isn't always carried around you. And so in the first 5 years, for them to have that message and understand it and believe it is going to help them carry that strength and that reminder that they're loved as they enter into the harder years of their life.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the church has a unique calling. I really do think it has a unique calling in terms of its ability to message that, Stacy, more than other places in terms of living in community, multi-generational, more than other places. I think the church is a unique place. And I feel like sometimes as a pastor, I lose sight of that we do have this opportunity that is different. And so I appreciate you bringing that up.
I have one final thought. I think another thing that I really see in the ministry of the preschools is the opportunity to be an outreach, is to be a ministry that can bring members to our church family. That's not, is to be a welcoming place for families who don't have a church home, to find a place where they feel like they fit. And hopefully that our church is that place, that they're going to feel welcomed and loved and develop a sense of community within the preschool that then will carry over into our church family.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If you don't mind, I love the crossover between preschool and Sunday school. I love it. But what about those children that don't attend the preschool?
Right.
Do they still feel connected to everything else? Are they getting what they need? Are they, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that they're getting reached as well, because I know my son didn't go to that preschool.
Right.
But he loves coming because we're there and they're all friends. And it's not just like when I grew up, I didn't go to my church's preschool. So it kind of felt like an us and them. And I like how we're not feeling that. And I just kind of want to keep it going that way, where we're all one family, no matter where you go to school. So that's kind of something I'd like to see, that children are accepting of everyone.
Excellent. That's excellent. And actually, to tell you the truth, this is not reflected on our current preschools. We've not always done a good job in helping people make that bridge. And so that's part of what we're under a new day, but we have work to do. And that's just, I love how Stacy and Ashley are helping us turn a new corner on that. And really deeply appreciative of both of them for that. But absolutely, the value is everyone is welcome and we're accepting of each other. and status doesn't come from where we go to school and that kind of thing. Am I getting it correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate your feedback. The reason we're starting with values is I think that we have some work to do. You know, this pandemic has really challenged our understanding of what it means to be church. It's challenged our picture of how we do church, particularly as the digital part of church will probably not go away. I'm guessing it won't go away. And how do we, and when we can't pull together completely, how do we reach some of these values? And I think we're in a place where we're having to really dig into and think about what the ministry will be. And we're at a stage of saying, are we focusing on the right things to get to those values? And so it's so important to me to kind of start with saying, these are the things that we really want to have an outcome of the ministry. And then what we'll do is we'll move towards a time when we say, how do we shape what we're doing to get to these outcomes? And some we're already doing and some we can work on. And so that's the reasoning behind this meeting. And so I just wanted you to kind of keep sense of why. I know on the next slide, Ben, Rick has one more question in this area.
So coming here tonight, you know, we've such a rich conversation about where we are and looking at where we go, and so much, and David leading us with the outcomes. Are there any values that we as a church need to change for the future? You know, with the pandemic, like we said, we have to rethink in all of our ministries about how we're reaching people, and some things that's been birthed, which has been really good with the whole digital component that we just had to rush and get to get in play in order to accommodate our congregation. So in looking at where we are in children's ministries, are there any values that we need to change for the future?
I would maybe just throw out, I don't know that we need to change this value. I think we do it to an extent, but I think part of children's ministry is leading by example too. I think some of our most successful things in the past have been when we can get the kids involved in service. There's a big service component in the Lent workbook for the kids. And I think that the more, you know, they used to do the Thanksgiving food drive, which was a blast. And I think by demonstrating that when, you know, we're all going through this, there are people going through a lot worse, and that our focus as Christians is on helping others, that'll help. You know, kids should want to come to church because it's fun, but also because, you know, they know it's a way to make a difference in the world. And if they're seeing that difference, I think that's huge.
Excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Laura, for that. Any other values that we need to change?
I haven't been here long enough to know what to change and what to keep. I'm sorry, but 2 weeks ago we did a baptism for little Remy, and she was in the contemporary service and she was just dancing. If y'all watched that, she wanted to go up and preach. She wanted to go up and sing and be one of the musicians. She wanted to dance. And just recently in our last worship planning meeting, actually earlier today, we talked about what would it look like to have a space, maybe just in the contemporary service to begin with, where kids could just be kids and they could dance, they could, you know, play with scarves, they could jump up and down, and it would be okay, and it would be normal, and it would be accepted and encouraged, and to be in a place where they weren't worrying about, you know, it being all quiet and calm, but where they could just express themselves. And so I don't know if that's a value we already have, but one I think we could definitely work toward.
Excellent.
I would have loved something like that when when Jacob was a lot smaller. We actually had that fear of, no, you have to stay quiet. Or I went and sat all the way in the back of the gym just so he didn't bother the people around us. So that's a good idea.
I would say also earlier, David asked if people were, you know, where people were on coming back. And I would say that a lot of the reason people are connecting with digital church with young kids is that they can wave the scarves and yell and run around and wander off and get juice boxes. And I think having a space that sort of reflects, the needs of kids within the worship I think that would be wonderful.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, I know Rachel said to start contemporary service to start, but Christopher and I just are not fans of the contemporary service. We never have been. I don't know if it's because we both grew up with more traditional services, but when our children, I mean, they're now 12 and 14, but when they were younger, it was in the traditional, it was really hard. And it makes my heart so happy when I see children or hear children, like when they yell out in response to even the pastor saying something. It brings the biggest smile to my face. And I know that there are some people who don't appreciate that, but it would have made me feel much more welcome when my children were younger if that were more accepting, if people were more accepting of that, I guess.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. The 11 o'clock space it's an interesting balance between wanting to facilitate traditional worship, but not being unfriendly. And it's not necessarily the friendliest space. And so,
Right.
and so, it's, I think about even the front of the sanctuary, it's just so closed off with wood and, it's just all this stuff is how we open it up and make it freer. And so I really love what you're saying about that. And the value underneath is a welcoming, not just welcoming people, but a welcoming place that kids want to be and experience and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And also go along with Brooke, what you said is, a value that we've talked about is the experience. And so with your children and, being in a traditional space, they are experiencing things, especially when they go for communion, and they have questions about that. They see, the pastors in the robes and have stoles, like, what is that? And when they see baptisms, all those things as a part of our faith, they are experiencing those things. Not necessarily like it's different from, children's ministries with all of the woohoo and all that, but all of it's still the experience. And so with church, and so having an environment, like you said, that is being welcome, they're able to have that experience of being in a traditional worship, which definitely has impacted you, Brooke, and your husband, and so that is a value of that welcoming space. And so children can experience those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that acolyte Antonina, before COVID hit, Antonina was an acolyte. And that was, we liked that a lot for her because she was learning all of that and getting all of that. So
certainly one of the throughputs programs that help build ownership and belonging, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, again, thank you so much for your feedback. Ben's going to talk about next steps, but please hear my gratitude for your time and your voice and all that you're doing to serve children. It is inspiring.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thank you, Rick. And thank you to everyone who's presented tonight, shared tonight. We just appreciate you being here and sharing what's on your heart and what's on your mind concerning children's ministry at church. The next steps are these two: to identify a small team to start meeting regularly to bring the future of children's ministry to life. Everyone who's attending tonight will receive an email following up after our session with an invitation to join in on future meeting regarding planning for children's ministry going forward. And this will be part of a newly enhanced children's team to create and implement the plan for us going forward. So again, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to ask David to close us out in prayer.
Loving God, I thank you for my brothers and sisters and for their heart, for their hard work and their dedication, not just in loving you, but in loving children and loving their neighbors' children and having a desire to help them find Jesus and to understand that God loves them and loves them and loves them and has created them to have a very special calling and place of fulfillment in life. Thank you for their heart to bring others to the church and to help them feel welcome and to be have a place that they can find joy in being a part of the family. And I just ask that you would bless them in their work, but that you would also bless your church, that is your church. And these are your children, and help us to do the best we can to live out your calling. Give us a passion, a flame of passion in our hearts to move forward and continuing to grow in our way of reaching out with the love and grace of Jesus. And I pray this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks again, everybody. Everybody have a great night. Thanks, David.
Thank you.